notice, to write, rehearse, and present a performance for the community.
And you take them to old folks' homes?
The beauty of suggesting students perform in old folks' homes and institutions for those who are detained for extended periods of time is your audience is not likely to leave.
The name of this presentation was The Assumption of Innocence Within a Context of Experience. Can you explain why that is the title?
Over here, where we have the mastery and mystery, the key characteristic of mastery is the assumption of innocence within a context of experience. This is the first time we've ever done this. This is the first time we've ever walked on stage. We have never been here before. This is the first time. If we're playing a piece of music that perhaps we've rehearsed and practiced for 30 years, are we able to contact the originating impulse, the point of seeing, the creative insight that gave rise to this? Over here, the professional. The professional knows what they can do. And they can do it reliably, responsibly, and repeatedly. They know what they can do, so they don't go further. This is the problem. The professional does not play what they don't know. The master walks on stage, as Richard did. I don't know what I'm going to do, he said to us before he came on. And I said, great. If you walk on stage not knowing what you're going to do, you might just do it. But not as a novice, where you really don't know what you're doing. The master has integrated all the skill set of a professional and then throws it away, or assumes the innocence. Assume the innocence, maintain that connection with the creative impulse. And this requires a particular effort of attention. In this superb article I continue to refer to, Richard suggests that in order to get unfixed, the Cirque du Soleil team use spontaneity. Spontaneity is a technique of the professional. Play, have fun. On the right, it's the assumption that this is the first time I have ever been here. This is the assumption of innocence. This is a characteristic of the master.
What do you do when you turn up for a performance?
Before I arrive at the performance, I prepared and rehearsed. How long have we got, sister?
A few minutes. Say 5 and we're done.
Fine. The key point in any performance is to hold the overview. This is the assumption of virtue. If we aspire to mastery, we define the characteristics of mastery, and then it becomes possible for us. This is a principle. If we cannot define the characteristics of the station to which we aspire, we will not get there. However, here we are as professionals seeking to improve our game. We know that one of the characteristics of mastery is to hold an overview. So, before we go to work, we have an overview of the whole event. We have our, we know our instrument, we know our material. Our material we can place in our mind's eye. For a musician, it's the first bar to the 32nd bar. Whichever bar I am playing at any particular moment, I have a connection to all the other bars. So any one bar is actually 32 bars. If it's 10 pieces of music, I have a connection to 10 pieces of music at whichever point in the performance I happen to be in time. Then I go to the play, I go to the venue. Better I know the venue, I must know the nature of the venue. Better to know the audience, but I will never know the audience. So better to know the nature of the audience. Once at the venue, define the boundary, protect the space, prepare the platform. Then, when I walk on stage, for the first time I've ever walked on stage, I pay attention to my first footfall as I walk on stage. Then there is the presentation, which we'll assume is a given. Then I pay attention to my first footfall as I leave the stage. Then the final part of the process in this overview is when I recapitulate the whole event, I go back through that event in reverse order. The effect of this is to digest my experiencing that it may nourish me more fully. And then I return myself to the beginning point where I'm ready to go to the next. That's a very brief overview.
I have brought a gift for all our attendees of the CD of what we did in San Francisco so that they can benefit from that as well. So when everyone comes back from lunch, on your place you will have the beginning to mastery so you can put it all more in context. I have one last question of my brother that will be our final remarks, but before that I would like to say something that you don't know because you wouldn't allow me to do it. Last Saturday I had the pleasure of being with the Seattle National Speakers Association chapter, and as you know, as my guest was Steve Ball, who is the gentleman who brought you into Microsoft to make the Vista sound. Steve Ball first came to hear you speak in Carbondale in 1981. And he gave me the greatest compliment ever because he said, Sister Fripp, what you do with your speaker friends is very much what your brother does in Guitar Pro. And he said, your brother is far too modest to say that you in fact discovered 3 genres of music: progressive rock, ambient music, and loop music. These did not exist, Steve said, until Robert showed up and improvised what was needed in the moment. He said a perfect example was Heroes. You built on what you know to what you didn't know. You turned up and listened to what David Bowie had done, and you improvised what was needed. The nuance, timing, and color that reinvented Bowie for the next 10 years of relevance, influence, and record sales because of your contribution. Steve said Heroes as a song is an anthem of a generation. Steve said what your brother does is you repeated the unrepeatable. Robert does not repeat the past, he repeats the future. Thank you, Dan Thurman, for letting us put the assumption of innocence within a context of experience, combining 2 venues. And my last question for my brother. All my speaker friends at NSA, my NSA family, are here at the Performance Lab to look at ways that they can improve their performance to better serve our audiences. And many of our audiences are living in what could be perceived as challenging and changing times. Your final comments.
In strange and uncertain times, such as those we're living in, Sometimes a reasonable person might despair. But hope is unreasonable, and love is greater even than this. May we trust the inexpressible benevolence of the creative impulse.
Wow!